listening to the House by the Video Store podcast.
There's no more room in hell. The dead will walk near.
We have such sights to show you.
I kick ass for the Lord.
Praise God!
Welcome to the House by the Video Store podcast. I'm your host, William, joined today by Sean.
Hello. It feels like it's been a long time.
Yeah.
I don't know if it has actually, but with the way we record, I feel like I haven't recorded in a very long time.
Yeah, just the way things have worked out. On this episode, we'll be discussing I Know What You Did Last Summer, which was in following with what we said on the prior podcast would actually happen. So it's some continuity there. We didn't mislead you on what we suggested. So that is the slasher movie that was post-Scream that also Kevin Williamson, who wrote Scream, had a hand in. And it was the movie that had Jennifer Love Hewitt, Sarah Michelle Gellar, Freddie Prinze Jr., Ryan Felipe, the dude from Big Bang Theory's in it. I'm forgetting his name.
Jake
Galecki.
Yeah. Also, Roseanne as well.
She's in it?
No, he's from Roseanne.
Oh. I was like, I don't remember Roseanne in it.
Is he in the new Roseanne show? I didn't watch any of that.
I didn't either.
But
I have no
he
clue.
was, the son and
Yeah, so I Know What You Did
or
Last
the boyfriend, I think. I can't remember.
I Know What You Did Last Summer was 97. And what's funny is I saw this movie back whenever it came out, or around the time it came out, because when that came out, it was when I was getting close to being 15 or whatever. So those, like, the movie didn't really have any nudity in it. The violence wasn't that much compared to anything that's on network TV today. And there wasn't that much cussing. So that's one of those movies that back then, like Scream or I Know What You Did Last Summer, a lot of people who were under the age of 17 that I knew all watched those movies.
Was this rated R as well?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's one of those movies, too. You had this slasher boom that happened in the late 90s, early 2000s because of Scream. And Scream is kind of the meta, self-referential slasher. I Know What You Did Last Summer was the more straightforward, not played for laughs slasher. But in the kind of modern context of we know the rules
I failed to look up much on this, but do you know if this was actually written post-Scream or because it almost feels like, Scream took off and they were like, hey, let's put some more of these in production. And it just feels like such a, backstep from
so it's based on a novel by Lois Duncan and Kevin Williamson did the screenplay.
Okay.
So I don't know all the trivia. Like, it definitely feels like Kevin Williamson was in a let's do modern slashers.
Yeah. Or let me get another paycheck
groove.
now that I'm rolling this gravy train of, Scream. Like, let's put this out there straightforward. We don't have to think too hard about it. You know what I mean?
Let's
just make one of these movies.
Let's get all these teen stars that are, from these things. So
part of the mystery gang.
Yeah, the Scooby-Doo, because it got Sarah Michelle Gellar and Freddie Prinze Jr. And then Shaggy, a.k.a. Matthew Lillard, was in the Scream franchise.
Yeah.
So, but that was just these two, Scream and I Know What You Did Last Summer are kind of the ones everybody remembers from that period. And those are also, to me, the thing I watch actually more than I Know What You Did Last Summer is Scary Movie, which felt more pulled from I Know What You Did Last Summer, because even though they have like a person in like the ghost face mask and stuff, they're still pulling more elements from I Know What You Did Last Summer. Like they think they kill somebody and all this stuff. So that's more of what I remember about that movie is more Scream than the movie itself. But
we'll also need to get to Urban Legend one day as well. Yeah, that's the other one. The other that comes off the top of my head as far as
because there's
this era.
Yeah, because there's like Urban Legend, which was the one that of course had Robert Englund in it as a professor. And then there's other ones that
that's the one I thought looked cool at the time. I did not see this right away.
Yeah,
I saw the end of it on HBO or something. Yeah. I saw like the last act of it, and I was like, like it didn't really do much for me, and so I didn't go back and. Because I loved Scream at the time, and I thought the Scream was really inventive. I'm like, oh, that's just like kind of a standard one, and it was fine. Like, but Urban Legend, that seemed interesting. Like, based on the trailers, that's the one I made sure I rented when it came out and stuff, and enjoyed that when I was younger.
Because there's Urban Legend. Then there's also Cherry Falls, which I remember that wasn't theatrical released very much. It was mostly, I remember seeing it on TV, and that one's just because it has this really weird plot twist that would probably in today's culture be seen as transphobic or
which isn't out of place in horror films.
Yeah, well, it's one of those things. It's one of those movies where watched in the context of the time it came out, you're like, whatever. But if you watch it today, then the plot falls a little bit differently, probably be perceived differently. But since it's a cult movie from 10, 15 years ago, the only people who watch it or interested in like the new releases of it, or just people who are fans of it from back then, is it had Brittany Murphy in it before she passed away. It had Michael Biehn. It had a few other people in it.
I have never seen that.
That's one, like I said, I didn't see it in theaters. I just remember seeing it on TV because I forget which channel used to play it, but it was one that like wasn't super well known because it's Cherry Falls. I'm trying to remember what that one. Jay Moore was in it. I'm trying to remember if there's anybody else in it of note, but yeah, that was.
What year was that?
It was from 2000, and that was just another one from kind of that era. And there's also that Valentine's Day one. I'm forgetting if it was just called that or the one that had David Boreanaz in it. And, Rebecca Gayheart or something. Or let's see.
Yeah, I remember the Rebecca Gayheart horror film, but I don't think I ever saw that either.
It was just another incredibly forgettable movie that was from that era that you could have easily released in the 80s with crappier production values, and it would have fit just in. What is it called? Oh, it's just called Valentine.
Let me see the poster.
So it has like a mask.
I don't remember that poster.
And let's see. Oh, it also had Denise Richards, and Katherine Heigl was in it. So there's a lot of these movies that I haven't thought about in a long time, aside from seeing like bits and pieces during my high school age career, like seeing them on TV during like the horror movie marathons or things like that. But yeah, so before we get to I Know What You Did Last Summer and all of the nostalgia that comes from that, we'll go through some recent news. And we're actually recording this one, the day of or the day before that this is getting released on July 23rd. And there's been a lot of stuff that's happened since the last episode. There has been news about a number of things.
Comic-Con.
Yeah, because Comic-Con's happened, so there's the trailers out of that, the conferences, the things like that. So there was a trailer for the new Godzilla, King of the Monsters, that has Godzilla and supposedly like King Ghidorah and Rodan and Mothra and all these different classic kaiju monsters from the Godzilla film. So it has Millie Bobby Brown from Stranger Things and Vera Farmiga, who's been in The Conjuring and American Horror Story. Or was she in American Horror Story? Or am I confusing that?
Via?
No, she wasn't. That was it was her sister Thaisa Farmiga that was in them.
Yeah, the trailer I thought looked good. A lot of people were really hyped for it. They loved the musical choice because it wasn't the typical like doom doom. Yeah, it was good, but also, I did watch it. I think I may have watched it on my phone. No, I watched it on TV.
Yeah.
On my Roku app or whatever. I thought it looked good. It's cool that I guess they made that first new one.
Yeah.
And it's like so the follow up is King Kong versus Godzilla, Godzilla versus King Kong. But it's like after that, where do you go? If he's King of the Monsters, if he's fighting that many monsters in this one, you know what I mean? Like. It's not even like it's just one or two. This is like they aren't holding things back.
Well, then it's too like those old Godzilla movies. Yeah. Godzilla with like Mothra was a good guy, but then they would fight. It just all depends on the pairings.
Yeah, I guess they could do a mech one. They could do a Pacific Rim versus Godzilla.
Well, like the other day, so there was some video I saw. I forget who posted it that showed the different sizes of Godzilla over the years and over the movie franchise. And then I went down the rabbit hole of watching videos of animated of Godzilla fighting different things. So they had Godzilla fighting the Dragon Zord from Power Rangers. And then they had Godzilla fighting like these other robots or things. So there's a lot of weird content on YouTube. You can go down the rabbit hole and watch.
I was really into Godzilla when I was younger. Like I was like pretty young, so I didn't really have access to watch anything like on demand. It was just every time I saw it on, and then I would buy
video store,
and then I would buy like the toys and stuff. Like I love the figures. Like I love the design of Godzilla.
Well, then there was like the terrible Hanna-Barbera cartoon with Godzilla and Godzuki.
Yeah, Godzuki. I watched the live action one too with his Godzuki was the son, right?
Yeah, but I think that the version of Godzilla's son may have not been called Godzuki.
I can't remember.
It looked completely different.
It may have been called just Son of Godzilla or something, but it was like it was centered around like this little kid and like Godzilla's kid, and they were like palled around together and stuff, and then Godzilla pop up and they like watch them fight. Yeah, but I even like that as a kid, like anything with Godzilla. Yeah, I was in on. So, but yeah, I'm like you. I skipped the 2014 one. I thought the trailer for that looked amazing.
Yeah, I just need to go. It's just whenever it came out, I wasn't seeing movies as much.
I wanted to, and then my wife was like, I don't really want to see it, and we just didn't see it. And then some people were lukewarm about it. I've heard some people say some good things about it, but now I'm definitely going to check it out because I did see Kong. But also too, Kong I wasn't super high on that, you know.
Like I thought Kong Skull Island was fun.
Yeah.
Very stereotypical, like Vietnam era CCR on the soundtrack,
which was
like
cool.
good cast. You know, it was an enjoyable movie. But yeah, so
it just missed the mark a little bit for me. But all the action and stuff was great in it. So yeah, I'm glad Godzilla is back. I mean, not that it has gone away
because Godzilla,
in any large amount, because you know Japan has still been producing them.
Well, yeah, there's been the Japanese ones. And it's only in the U.S. you had the 1998 Roland Emmerich, Matthew Broderick Abomination, where they actually sized Godzilla down considerably, changed the design of it, and just made a movie that fans weren't happy with. And I think even the Japanese films responded to it with them killing a version of Godzilla that looked like the American one or something.
Yeah, then they made Godzilla 2000, I think.
Yeah, so you've had it, you know, Godzilla consistently over the years has been content coming out. And then it's just, you know, is it the more moderately budgeted Japanese versions where, you know, it's actually suits and practical? Or is it the U.S. versions where it's big, you know, $100 million plus budgets with CGI and all that stuff? So I'm excited to see it. That made me definitely say, you know, just like similar to you, like I need to go back and watch the first one now. Because it wasn't that I didn't hear, like I heard good things about it. It's just whatever point it came out.
I think it maybe was expectations. I'm not saying like quality wise, but just maybe what that film was.
Yeah.
You know, people were like, oh, I didn't expect maybe this pace of the film or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. Or comments on the film we haven't seen, but I'm going to check that out.
Let's see. So then there's some other news, like some stuff we won't spend too much time on. Like James Gunn was fired from directing Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3.
So and he seemed to be having a bigger hand in the direction of some Marvel films too, you know?
Yeah, completely. Like, so assuming that decision was made and stays, which I don't think they'll reverse the decision, like to me, the person that makes the most sense just to slot in and take over would be Taika Waititi, who did Thor Ragnarok.
Yeah, I heard people mention that.
But he may not want to do that. He may have other obligations. You know, there may be more politics on that. But then the overall thing that came out of that is like anybody that's in the creative world, it does open up a bit of a can of worms of what are things people can say on social media and jest as a joke that gets them fired from high-paying gigs because it creates controversy. There's like there's a lot of conversation around
regardless of what he said or you know the tweets and jokes or whatever. Like there definitely is a line between some things people say like that are obviously trying to get a rise and a joke, if you want to call it that, versus people's actions. You know what I mean? Like, it's the same thing as some people who preach that, you know, they're very Christian, but then behind closed doors, they're the most despicable people on earth. You know, it's like, I don't know. There's a fine line versus actions versus words.
Because it was like Michael Rooker left Twitter and said that he was just going to quit the account because it was, or he's going to quit the site because it's terrible. And he basically, you know, did that in protest. What happened to James Gunn, who he's worked with closely. It's one of those things where the jokes that he made were about like pedophilia and things, which are more borderline than just kind of generic jokes. But it does kind of, I guess...
And not shocking coming from a guy who got to start with trauma. He should have like... well, apparently he apologized for him years ago as well.
A lot of them were for 2008. So the question is like, did he delete those years ago and just people had screenshots? But he was not a nobody in 2008. I think there's a little bit of difference if somebody was, you know, early teen, you know, like teens, early 20s, college age, and they were a nobody that was just, you know, tweeting to like 20 people.
Yeah.
There's a difference between that and somebody that had already been a screenwriter for Dawn of the Dead, directed Slither, and was in the nerdosphere and was well known. But then again, like, hasn't he also directed porn or something?
Yeah, I don't know.
So, like, working on trauma stuff, you'd think Disney would have looked at all of that back when they hired him and decided if they were okay with it then.
Yeah. I don't know. It's a unfortunate thing for him putting so much of his like life work into this, series, and really he would have been the first person to make a trilogy in the Marvel universe.
Well, Disney did wait until after his script was turned in and completed to fire him. So,
well, the uproar came overnight, basically. I think
there was this, without going into the politics of it, regardless of what happens, just this is an era where a lot of people who tried to be edgelords online 10 years ago might want to just delete those before they have a chance to be found out. I mean, but so there's that news, which is just something just touching on briefly, and that can go all over the place. I don't think there's
real quick, the Netflix news. David Lynch, I guess they were talking about him producing that film that Netflix is going to be releasing. Yeah,
because he was at Netflix headquarters, and everybody was freaking out.
That's what that is.
It's like, well, Showtime has the rights to Twin Peaks.
I think the Glass trailer looks phenomenal. Yeah, bigger budget than I expected. I thought it was going to be a more tempered budget, like Split being a Blumhouse production.
Well, I think with the
is this a Crow production thing?
Well, like Universal, I would assume. I think they're the ones who produced and released Unbreakable. So there's more studio dynamics at play than because Split itself, aside from like the little teaser,
Spoilers,
stinger at the end. That was, its original thing. That was just a Blumhouse production through Universal being released. Glass is where they had to negotiate more rights of, these are pre-existing characters where I'm sure sequel rights and merchandising already exist in here. So I would assume the budget for that would have to be more just because of all the work they would take to get it done. And I don't think they would do all the work and make a $20 million budget movie.
You've got Bruce Willis and Samuel L. Jackson, too. That probably gave him a little bit more box office confidence.
Yeah, and you got Bruce Willis likely in the I give a shit mode, unlike the I don't give a shit mode that he shows up in most things.
This is, normally we get these sequels to these films from 15 years ago.
Yeah.
This is the odd occurrence where we get a sequel to a film like from early 2000s, and also a sequel to a film from like 2 years ago. You know what I mean?
It's like a weird crossover.
It's like you've got the new generation that saw Split. It's like hell yeah, and you've got the older generation that were maybe fans of Unbreakable that maybe didn't even see Split, and maybe now jump into it. So it's hopefully everything's going to line up. If the film turns out well, hopefully they make their money back in it. Because I think it looks phenomenal. The trailer got me really excited.
Let's see. Then other news: Joe Bob Briggs is Shudder said that he'll be coming back later this year because his first showing or the first special he did,
which was called The Last Drive-In,
kind of slammed their servers with traffic they hadn't seen before, and it caused it to all crash. So that did well enough that I'm assuming that convinced them to bring Joe Bob back for more. Because there's definitely an appetite for that, but it's kind of a niche.
I watched as much as I could, and it's just awesome because it's just having somebody who is very knowledgeable talk in between the breaks, like, hey, gives you all this movie history. You know what I mean? It's just if you're a movie fan at all, like you soak that stuff up. It's a mix between film commentary and watching the film. It is like watching it like a community experience, watching it with somebody. But instead of like the commentary talking over the film, you watch the film and then you take a break and then, it's kind of discussed a little bit. It's really the perfect format. Like here, it's fine, podcasts and whatever. Like sometimes, you want that unfiltered, just discuss things or whatever. But I think it's a great format. It's something we couldn't do online. We talked about like doing stuff like that, but you just can't do it with YouTube. Everything will get pulled or whatever. Like it is the ideal way, I think, to watch a lot of films because it's easy. I'm sure there's certain podcasts people don't listen to that it's because like I haven't seen that film. I don't really. It's an older film. I don't need to know if it's good. I know the public opinion of it. And I don't want spoilers on it. But something like that doesn't matter what the movie is. You can watch. You're watching it. And it's not going to get spoiled really. So
because
it's phenomenal. It was so good.
Yeah, so he'll be coming back. So more Shutters making their way in the world. Hopefully they get their service a little bit more durability tested to stand up to the extreme demand. Because so far, I don't think Netflix has ever had problems with demand. Now, obviously, their subscriber base is huge, so that makes sense. But I know like HBO Go has had a lot of problems with streaming on like the nights of big shows, or even Game of Thrones, like for premieres and finales, it would crash, or True Detective, or different things would crash the service. Let's see, what else?
There's some more Shudder news. You got that on your docket?
I don't remember.
Creepshow.
Oh, yeah, the Creepshow anthology series where name only, I don't think they're going to have Stephen King writing it. Yeah, so what they do with that is, yet to be seen. The Creepshow brand is one that, like more hardcore horror fans or just, casual fans who enjoy it are aware of. I don't think it's as much of a mainstream property that people are super aware of. So I think that saying that it's Creepshow initially raises the expectations immediately before it even starts. But it also drives more interest than if it was just called,
Oh, yeah.
scary
sort of
blah, blah, blah.
anthology, yeah.
So I think that, gives them a certain level of audience is guaranteed, but also raises the expectation. So hopefully they put some time and effort into it, and it turns out to be something that's more comparable to like the Masters of Horror series from years back than some of the other anthology series that have come around.
Greg Nicotero is producing it too, so.
Yeah, and he's had, a lot of experience with The Walking Dead, so I'm assuming, brings the knowledge of how to run a television series successfully. But, like Creepshow 1 and 2, like 2, The Raft is one of the best segments from an anthology.
I need to watch that. I've never watched part 2.
Like, yeah, so there's The Raft alone.
I've always heard The Raft,
is one of like the best anthology sequences that has like one of the best endings that's so iconic, and you watch it like, how did they make that work?
Yeah.
So like, if you haven't watched Creepshow 2, like The Raft alone is worth watching
I
it
think
for.
2 is on Shudder as well.
And I mean, there's some other segments in it about like at some store, like the wooden Indian like welcome Native American carving thing comes to life. So there's some of the stuff in there. It's a little bit goofier, but The Raft is amazing. The original Creepshow was great too, and had a lot of memorable segments that I saw as a kid. Actually, with Corey, who's done stuff for the site. When I was young, he was a big fan of that even back then. And that's when I saw it. So excited to see what they do with it. Hopefully, they keep it up to the standards that the name will make fans think of. Because like I said, it's a double-edged sword. It gives you more recognition than you would have gotten if you just called it some other name, like Tales of Terror or something.
Yeah.
But I'm sure that's a name of something too. But just calling it some generic name, a Shudder anthology, people just kind of like, oh, okay, and they move along and forget about it. If you say Creepshow, then anybody who's a fan of the movies is going to watch it. And then the way culture works today, it's either to shit on it or to love it, because people usually only have those results. But I am excited to see what they do with it. And if they, bring in guest directors, who are they getting to write these? Like, what's the goal? Do they tie in together whatsoever? Like, where does all that go to? That'll all be stuff that'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, Shudder's really
they've got their eye on trying to do something serious and trying to improve their place in the world.
Speaking of Shudder, my wife and I went out for her birthday the other night, and my father-in-law, mother-in-law was at our house watching our kid, and we got home and they were talking about what they watched, and I bought them a Roku. They play with their DVD player and stuff like that, but I got them a Roku just because it's easier to use and everything. And I was showing him like, hey, when you plug it up, this is what it looks like on the TV. And then he's like, oh, we watched some of that Shudder. And I'm like, oh, you did? He's like, yeah. He was like, we watched this one, and he started explaining it. And he's like, about a lady that has a little creature friend, and then come to find out, he was like, yeah, it was a foreign film, and they watched this German language. I think it might be called The Nightmare, possibly. Not that documentary or
about
thing.
sleep paralysis.
But I had it on my list because I heard it was good.
Yeah.
But they watched an entire German subtitled film, and they were like, it was pretty good. They were like, I liked it, and they were like pretty high on it. So that's what I asked my wife. I'm like, have they ever watched a subtitled film before? She's like, I don't think they have ever, probably. So I'm gonna watch that soon. That was like first on my queue, and they just happened to say, okay.
Yeah, it's interesting stuff like that works. Yeah, because I've always been interested, like with like my parents. Like I think my mom watched stuff with subtitles. My dad's probably not as much of a fan because I think he got annoyed with the subtitles on Inglourious Bastards. So it's always interesting to see how stuff like that works. Let's see other news. So there's the Purge TV series, which we talked about some before. Based on the way the first Purge went, it'll be interesting to see how the show goes. Because the first Purge really didn't dive into anything enough. It was enjoyable, but I think I said like it straddled the line between political statement and exploitation, and it seemed like it was a little bit more on the exploitation side because the messaging was all very, surface level. There was here's a dude wearing a KKK hood, not a lot of subtext going on. But that TV series I will be interested to watch. It's gonna be on USA. And I have the login credentials for a USA account, so I can watch that. let's see, Buffy the Vampire Slayer. The intention is to bring that back, to reboot that series. This time with an African American lead character.
And what is it? Say a network or anything? Was that anything attached, or they were just bringing it back?
I think it was just like early talks because initially it aired back in the day on UPN or whatever it is. I think now the CW, because it kind of changed networks mid-run. So the idea is to bring it back and to do that. I've seen people arguing that that's the wrong approach to take because it's going to have a similar result most likely to like the Ghostbusters reboot. Whenever you take a prior existing franchise that had a fan base and all this stuff, and then you say, let's bring it back, but let's just shift the gender or the, race or ethnic identity or sexual orientation or whatever. Let's just flip all this stuff of this existing property. Some people have said, well, they should just make a new story that's more attuned with the characters and the overall concept matching the experience people are trying to represent. So I get the idea. Instead of just taking, here's an idea and let's slap something else in it, regardless of who they get attached and how they flesh it out, just the idea of let's take an existing thing and just modify it to fit some other mold that we want to do.
Yeah. Or, another way to look at it too is maybe this isn't their thought process. Maybe it is just like, hey, we want to do something a little bit different. Is maybe they feel like they can contextualize certain race issues or whatever. They feel like they can work in new ground on a new series. You know what I mean? Where it's like, hey, we didn't touch on these subjects before, or at least with the main character. I didn't watch any of the Buffy, but now it's like maybe they were thinking, why do the exact same thing again? Like, if we at least splinter off a little bit, that will maybe like get the wheels spinning and kind of allow us to go in a different direction naturally instead of just having to force our way into thinking of how to make it differently.
Well, and two, hopefully saying they're going to reboot it and calling it Buffy the Vampire Slayer is just because that's what the property is. Like maybe they change the name of it and make it something more specific to what they're trying to represent. I mean, I watched the original series. I like the first few seasons way more than the later ones and kind of fell off of it.
I love the movie. I know fans of the show hate the movie. I loved the movie when I was younger. As an outsider, I thought the TV show looked really kind of goofy a little bit. Well, but then slowly people I worked with and stuff, I worked at like, Mike Lennings and everything. And Harrison there, he's like, oh, I got to get home. I got to make sure Buffy's recording. And then that's when I started realizing, oh, wait, people like this has like some fans. And then I started hearing more people talk about it in a very positive way.
A lot of talented people like writers and directors came out of that universe of that and like Angel and stuff. But, I don't really have any problems in bringing it back. That was just different articles I had seen kind of espousing different viewpoints of, this is great, or, people of color saying, we don't just need rewarmed over, table scraps. Let's make something new. Yeah. Which I get all of those viewpoints, but that will be coming back.
Speaking of another kind of, not reboot, but sequel, Tales from the Hood 2. That just screens. I'm trying to think where was it? Well, I think it just screened. Somebody said we got the first details and images. This is from June 29th. I could have swore I
think there's been like some teaser trailers and stuff.
Film School Rejects has a review of it. I thought I had read a review and I'm like, was this a bogus review on some site? But Keith David is the host. I think they said, maybe it's not as good as the other one, but it is a worthy film. I think it's pretty decent. Apparently it's worth checking out. So that was one review I read, and I'll be curious to hear more about that.
Once we get to actually watch that, we can talk about it, because the original Tales from the Hood is one of those things where if you just objectively discuss it, quality wise, like some of the segments vary and stuff like that, its cultural impact is probably more than its quality. And nothing against it, just that time that it came out,
but at least it had a
message. Or
had a message.
And a lot of it's still relevant today. A lot of those stories would be that much different if you were to tell them today. So that, that's something to look out for. I guess we can just kind of briefly touch on things we watched before we get into I Know What You Did Last Summer. So I saw Ant-Man and the Wasp, finally, which Derek could talk about. I still haven't seen Jurassic World 2, just because everything I've seen about it just seems to me to be depressing and just not what I want. Mm-hmm. And then just every time I've tried to go see it, something came up and I didn't. But I did see Ant-Man and the Wasp.
Did you get hit with that premium fee for Ant-Man or anything?
No, because I have the yearly account, which I think doesn't have all the same restrictions through Movie Pass. But like, as me and Julie were talking, we probably won't renew it because I don't think the company will be around that long. Yeah. And it does kind of make it of a pain in the ass because you can't do reserved seating if you have Movie Pass. But then the thing that sucks is the Stubbs A-List AMC thing that they've talked about sounds like, oh, that's a pretty decent deal. It's a little bit more money, but it's a little bit more flexible to use it because you can reserve tickets online. But here in this area, there's only one AMC theater, and I don't want to be locked to only going there. Yeah. So I don't know what'll go on, but like Ant-Man and the Wasp is when I went and saw it like on a weekday. I think I saw like a Monday or something. It was enjoyable. It was fun. It was kind of like action comedy more so than like straight action. It wasn't the more serious tone of the Avengers Infinity War. It was more of just like, hey, here's fun.
Yeah.
Here's Paul Rudd. He's making jokes. Here's other people making jokes. People get big. People get small. Things, blow up, but doesn't really seem too dangerous. And there's an ant playing drums. So a lot of stuff going on. It was just, generally a fun movie. I would say like in terms of like the solo movies, the solo films of the superheroes in between the team up movies, it's enjoyable. It's better than like Thor Dark World and Iron Man 2 and some of those ones like that. But I know Derek liked it a lot. Like I enjoyed it, but I still probably like
Derek was saying it was his favorite. But he does that about every couple months. He's like, this is my favorite film in this franchise ever. And, so I take that with a grain of salt.
I really liked it because the stakes were low.
Yeah.
It's not the world is going to end. It's like more personal stakes.
So the first one was a heist film, kind of.
Yeah. And this one wasn't as much of a heist film.
That's what I didn't think it was a specific genre. I didn't know if they took a different angle or is it
this was less heist and more almost like a video game movie, and then it was like a bunch of fetch quests, like get this, keep this from there, get this back, take that. But like it's an action comedy more so, really. So it was enjoyable. It was fun. Evangeline Lilly as the Wasp was really cool and fun.
She good in that?
Yeah, she was really good. And they did something that I know that a number of the female characters have complained, or actresses. I know Olsen. It's not Elizabeth.
Ashley.
No.
I mean, no. Yeah, Mary-Kate and Ashley is the twins.
Yeah.
Oh, no. What is her name?
No, is it Elizabeth Olsen?
Elizabeth, yeah, it is.
Because she was talking about the Scarlet Witch costume is just like a corset leather pants, and it's all low cut and blah, blah, blah. And with Ant-Man and the Wasp, like they actually give her a costume that is like flattering, but also cool. And not overly sexualized or any more so than the other ones, really.
Yeah, it's weird. Like her talking about Scarlet Witch's costume and stuff. Like,
yeah, Elizabeth Olsen.
I understand it's a big production and you can't really take everybody's, but you would think like if it's a main hero going to be part of this franchise, it would be cool to consult with them a little bit, not just say, hey, here's your outfit, we designed it, isn't this awesome? Like, maybe if being a female, especially, like, hey, do you have any feedback on this?
It's probably, if I had to guess, it's probably just that a character that mostly appears in team-up movies isn't given as much attention or thought into their wardrobe as the characters that appear. But then again, like Black Widow got a costume that's like more functional and armored in the recent movies. But yeah, so Ant-Man and the Wasp, I really enjoyed it. It's not hard-hitting cinema that's going to leave you with lasting thoughts, but it was a fun movie that... because I think the first one I didn't see in theaters. I saw it on HBO or Showtime or something later. So this one is definitely in the mold of something that'll probably be on those networks nonstop because it's kind of like a light, fun movie. Doesn't last super long or doesn't feel like it does. And there's a lot going on. It's got a lot of good actors in it. It's got Lawrence Fishburne, Walton Goggins, and of course like the main cast. But fun movie. I enjoyed it. But I don't know if I'll buy it on Blu-ray or anything. If it comes to streaming services, I'll definitely watch it again. I might buy it.
Coming to Disney streaming services, 2020, 2019.
So did you watch anything?
Yeah. Speaking of video game fetch quest, I watched Mayhem.
Oh, the Joe Lynch movie.
Which I think Joe Lynch said he was going to get off. Was he said he's going to get off Twitter too?
I think a lot of people have said they would get off it because it really
he was thinking about it one.
Anybody that has any amount of following or notoriety whatsoever, it seems to be a far more negative experience than positive.
Yeah.
Because people just like tweet at a director and say, yeah, I saw your movie last night. I pirated it because I didn't want to give money for it and it was terrible and you're a dumb person. So it's like, why do you want to interact with that? That's not actual critique, commentary, discussion. That's just people being petty.
Maybe we'll hit a point where most of the creators will put up the wall again. Not that they had a wall, but there wasn't there was no way to make a connection.
Yeah.
And now maybe they realize, hey, it was kind of good. There was no way to make a connection before.
Don't need people to tell me how
they can
terrible
just
I am.
write out. If they hate me that much, make them write it out on a piece of paper and mail it to me. I want them to go through the effort. But yeah, after watching The Last Drive-In, just having that on and streaming, I had Shudder on while I was still working because I was really busy that weekend editing. And Mayhem just popped up and started playing as their Shudder TV, you know. So I watched that as I worked. But there's a segment in that feels very much like a video game fetch quest, and then it made me remind me of that. I thought it was okay. I didn't love it. It was about what I expected to be out of it. I kind of didn't hunt it down before to watch it, but I thought it was all right. And you had watched it before too, right?
Yeah, I thought it was pretty good. I mean, it was because that came out around the same time as the Belko Experiment, which are just like Office Place, violent movies where people are killing each other, different premises as to how that happens.
This is like a weird virus thing, and
it's a law firm where they have used the defense before successfully that if you're infected with the virus, that anything you do isn't your real, you aren't responsible for. Yeah.
But also it's not like people are not like they're virused out like zombies. Not like they seem to be self-aware.
Yeah.
They just may have looser inhibitions.
Yeah. Just essentially takes all of your blocks out and you just do whatever the wildest thing is you wanted to do with no inhibitions or reservations.
But also too, it's not like they're just animals.
People have discussions and conversations.
Yeah, people go. So it's which is better than it just being an all-out brawl at all times. But yeah, I thought it was fine. Didn't knock my socks off. But I watched a bunch of stuff during the Joe Bob marathon. But I don't even remember all I saw. I had watched Basket Case. I'd never really seen much of that before.
Yeah.
That was pretty cool and interesting. About a guy who's, I guess, brother that was attached to him was this deformed creature, and they cut him off, and now he lives in a basket. He can hear his brother talk, or his brother can hear him talk. It can only go one way, and I think basically it was just because so they didn't have to do the puppet to be talking, But yeah, I watched that. That was enjoyable. I know why that film is a kind of a cult hit. Reanimator, again, watch that again on there. Hellraiser, some of that. Tourist Trap. I already kind of forgot. Okay, I remember that one now. I like Tourist Trap quite a bit. It had Chuck Connors, who was an old Western star. I think that may have been the first film they put up. I think they may have put that up preemptively or something to kind of just have something up. Yeah. And I enjoyed that quite a bit. I want to go back and watch that full film because I think I missed the beginning of it or something because I just started it and I didn't know the stream was up because it was up earlier than it was supposed to be.
Yeah.
But I really enjoyed that. I'm definitely going to watch Tourist Trap again. Some other stuff too that was just here and there. I was watching bits and pieces, as I was working, coming in and out. And then not really horror related, but I watched Blockers, the comedy.
Yeah, the one that has the chicken or the cock in front of.
Yeah, cock blockers. Leslie Mann, John Cena, and Ike
Barinholtz.
Yeah, Barinholtz, who I think he's super funny. Leslie Mann's awesome. I love that film. I thought it was great. I watched Game Night too. Did I talk about Game Night?
Yeah, we talked about that before.
I liked Game Night. That was good. I thought Blockers was probably one of my favorite comedies in a while. I definitely want to buy that movie. Don't watch the trailer before you watch it though, because I hadn't seen the trailer since it had came out.
Yeah.
And I saw some people complain it ruined some of the big jokes, and it does. I watched the trailer after the fact.
Yeah. Well, Ant-Man and the Wasp, if you want to see it and you haven't seen the trailer, don't watch the trailer because it's a lot of the big payoffs.
Yeah. Yeah. So Blockers has some of those, a lot of comedies do, but it's not that's the only funny bits.
Yeah.
I think that Blockers is very good. It's written and directed by Kay Cannon, who wrote on 30 Rock a lot and various other things, but I think this is her first directorial project. So I'm very excited to see what she does next. And then Sharp Objects. Is it Gillian Flynn? Is that her name?
I don't know.
The writer that wrote Gone Girl.
I don't remember.
Anyway, Amy Adams is in it. It's set in a small town in St. Louis.
Yeah, Gillian Flynn.
Yeah, Gillian Flynn.
Or Gillian.
But, you know, it's HBO Prestige TV. It's a mystery. It seems to have maybe, like, I don't know if it's supernatural necessarily or if it's something maybe in the character's mind, but it is very much a mystery. Like, it's not confusing like Westworld or something. It's not like totally just like Twin Peaks, like what the heck is going on, you know, the return. But definitely you'll get flashes where something will happen on screen or there'll be something, I don't want to say supernatural, but you know what I mean? Like, it's just like, what? Like, there's like stuff lighting up on an arm and you're like, what is going on? Is this just kind of a little bit of flair of symbolism and stuff? Or is this, I'm very curious to see where it's going. But regardless of all those little flashes, I think it's just, it's great. I like her character. You know, she goes to stay with her mom for like her family, kind of just the relationships. And she goes back to her hometown to investigate a murder, essentially. She's a reporter. Living in St. Louis, but so her town, her hometown is, I guess, a few hours away, and it's a small town. So it's basically she goes back there and of course knows many people. Yeah. And it's like, okay, she's dealing with some of her past and also, you know, investigating this young girl that was went missing, and another girl had been murdered like previously, like, I don't know, 9 months later or something like that. And also to push back with her mom, like, why are you doing this? Let us grieve. Like, her mom doesn't understand her job, which is, you know, I worked in the news media. Yeah. Had people yell at me before, you know what I mean? And she's trying to explain, like, this may help, but also her character too is like some reporters could be, where maybe they aren't totally doing it for the best intentions. They might do, you know, they might cross the line a little bit morally. They could be more like Gail Weathers from Scream. Yes, yeah. You know, she's not that far, but you know, she's like taking notes at the funeral, you know, and her mom's like, stop it, you know, it's interesting. But yeah, I think it's really good. I'm really into that show. So watched 2 episodes so far. But yeah, that was probably it.
All right. Now again, discussing I Know What You Did Last Summer from 1997, directed by Jim Gillespie. And let's see, what else did he direct? Joyride, the movie.
Okay. Makes sense.
Let's see, what else? Or Joyride, maybe not the one with Steve Zahn and Paul Walker. This is a different one. The electrifying journey of a cable repairman at the hands of 2 lunatic joyriders. So that's a different. I think that's a short. Oh yeah, it's only 10 minutes. So not the movie I was thinking of initially with Paul Walker and Steve Zahn. Yeah, I did not do the sequel to I Know What You Did Last Summer. I Still Know What You Did Last Summer, which would even cover that one, just because I remember watching that back in the day and just thinking, even back then, I was like, this is.
Well, they had 4 of them now. I'll Always Know What You Did Last Summer, and
well, I'm assuming it's only the first 2 that have Jennifer Love Hewitt, right?
Yeah, but I think they made like a sequel not that long ago.
Well, I just know that the second one is where they go on the resort island, and that one actually has has like Jack Black in it.
Yeah, I was looking up the cast list on that,
but it was just something I don't really want to revisit because there's not gonna be much positive to come out of it. But like, you know, I Know What You Did Last Summer. We'll do full spoilers throughout because it's a movie that. It's from 1997. It's available to watch for free on Vudu. That's where I was at, right? Vudu?
Yeah, it was free on Vudu.
Yeah, it's free on Vudu. You can buy it on disc. I'm sure you can get a cheap used DVD copy somewhere. But
real quick too, you know, just because we were going on like if there's sequels and stuff. Yeah, I'll Always Know What You Did Last Summer came out in 2006. So I think there was 3. That was the direct-to-video one.
Yeah.
And then in 2014, Mike Flanagan... along with Jeff Howard, we're writing a script and going to remake it.
Yeah.
And then I'm just kind of skimming through this, but a new direction and scope of the film necessitates an estimated budget of 15 to 20 million. Sony also states that the film is high priority and set for release somewhere between 2017 and 2020.
Yeah. So a pretty wide range of times. And, you know, with the movie itself, I guess if you were to remake it today, you just have to throw in a bunch of crappy social media stuff because, I mean, the movie as a whole, I don't think there's a lot you would change to reboot it unless you wanted to make them be taunted on social media by somebody.
Yeah, they'll get text.
But then you get like Unfriended and Scream the TV series and all these things that have kind of covered that ground and all kinds of modern movies.
I mean, the basic premise of it, I'm sure this has probably been done in older movies and stuff as well. Maybe. But the basic premise of it is good. Like, you know, teenagers accidentally kill somebody. I think they do. They're scared teenagers, so they hide the body. They do something stupid, which is always a great device in films when characters do something stupid to get themselves in deeper. So that is something ripe for, you know, telling a new story on that for sure.
Yeah.
I think that is probably a fine decision to remake this film of all horror films from the 90s. You know, you don't want to remake Scream, really.
Well, because Scream, like, you had Scream 4, and that was in 2011. And I think that showed that the gas had kind of ran out with.
I like that one.
I mean, I just mean like the box office.
Yeah, yes, for sure.
Because the movie made like $40 million or something.
Yeah.
I mean, like at the end of the day, it may have eventually made profit when it was, you know, on video and streaming and cable and all that stuff. But the movie itself did not have the same reaction. It made, you know, half of what any of the other ones have made. You know, multiple years, 11 years after the fact. So. You know, if you account for inflation, it made a lot less than the original films. But I think it's just because of the kind of self-referential meta slasher stuff. I mean, it works in doses of parts of kind of like a different story, but if that's just your entire driving force, I don't think that's at this point what audiences are looking for. But I Know What You Did Last Summer, to me, even back when it came out, before the CW was the CW, it felt like those kind of the WB or whatever type series. I mean, even though I think this was before Buffy or right around the same time, it felt like more like those shows.
Yeah, what show was Jennifer Love Hewitt on?
Party of Five.
Yeah, Party
of
of
Five. Like all those shows, because you had Party
James
of Five and you know, the teen movies and, you know, Cruel Intentions and all these, because Ryan Phillippe and Sarah Michelle Gellar are both in that. So
it's like the post 90210 teen dramas.
Yeah, so it just felt like that era, and I think today with like Pretty Little Liars and all these shows that I've heard people talk about, haven't watched, but I've heard people talk about, I think that this is something that would be able to be slightly reworked, and audiences would be okay with it because it's not so hinged on what it is.
Or
it's literally
any strong characters that define it. Like, like a Freddy Krueger. Yeah,
because I mean, you have the killer in this, so like I said, so basically the plot, a group of friends are celebrating, driving in a car, and things go awry, and they end up hitting someone, and they think that they kill them, and they decide that they don't want to tell anybody about it because there's liquor in the car, and all these, they don't get in trouble and get, you know, murder charges or whatever.
Somebody's going up to college or something. There's a few people that this would adversely affect the course of their life, and they're kind of about to start their life, basically.
So then they decide that they, as a group, will tell no one about it, and they'll just dump the body in the water. And then when they dump the body in the water, he's not dead. And then they essentially then have to actually kill them. Or so they thought. And then it's just the next year, the next summer, when, you know, when Jennifer Love Hewitt's character has gone to college and comes back, and everybody kind of comes back together, and they start getting notes about, like, I know what you did last summer. And then it escalates from there. And then, you know, it's kind of a whodunit mystery thing about, well, who's responsible. And it has the damn plot point that all these movies have. People go to someone's house to find out more backstory, and they can't tell if the person is creepy or nice or what have you. Because this movie had it. The Town That Dreaded Sundown had it. I can't remember how many horror movies just have that trope.
What's the one that, oh my gosh, it's a sequel with the guy from Big Bang Theory.
Oh, Rings.
Yeah, Rings did the same thing.
Well, there's like, you can count how many horror movies essentially have like two to three characters go and meet up with someone else to find out backstory about what's going on.
Yeah.
And then you have the mysterious, like, oh, what's this thing really mean? And then you have the whodunit element of, you know, is it one of the main characters that's doing this to the others out of guilt? Is it the person they thought they killed really didn't die? Is it somebody that is a relative of the person that died trying to seek revenge? And it's all this kind of whodunit stuff, but you don't really have enough information to really care.
Yeah, I don't think the mystery was built well enough to get you engaged in the whodunit. You know, you wonder, you know, you have curiosity about it.
But you haven't really been introduced to enough characters to know.
Yeah, I think definitely this could be handled a lot
Well,
better.
And two, the killer. So a lot of times in these different series, you have the killer that's revenge focused, so only goes after the people responsible for what happened. But in this movie, that's not the case because the killer just straight up kills people that are just peripherally, because like Jake Galecki's character had nothing to do with it. He drove by and saw it.
Okay, yeah,
but then he just got killed.
But I watched this film, but also, did I miss something? Because I thought at the end of the film, spoilers, that the killer was always the killer and he had possibly killed that guy and done something right, So maybe he was always just a killer.
Well, I think the idea was that initially you think that through the flashbacks and through the information they gain, it seems as if what happened was there was a guy that had been in a car accident or something that killed his girlfriend years prior. And then he went to the spot that accident occurred to commit suicide because he was still overcome with grief about the fact that he resulted in that girl's death. And then what you find out through the course of the story is that, yeah, that guy was there, but then so was the girl who died. Her father was there trying to kill the guy that he held responsible for his daughter's death. And that's who they hit, and that's who they think they kill, and that's who wants to get revenge on them throughout the rest of the movie. And you have that plot twist, but it's like if this was like a sequel, then yeah, if you give enough time for it to all kind of build.
Yeah.
Because I think Scream did a better job of making you wonder who the killer was.
It was a great whodunit.
It set up enough red herrings that you're like, well, who is it? And you had more genuinely relatable characters that the starting point wasn't they all did something terrible. Because Jennifer Love Hewitt's kind of the audience surrogate of the character who reacts in the more honorable way and wants to call the police and is upset that they're not doing it, but is still complicit you know, at the end of the day. And then all the other characters are varying levels of complicit, with Ryan Felipe's character being the one that was the most gung-ho about, dumping the body, not getting caught, not caring about it. And I feel like that was like the character he played a lot back then. But, you have those characters, so none of them are super relatable. And
they're very just boilerplate. They're not interesting characters.
You have the beauty queen who... honestly, probably just so she Sarah Michelle Gellar was also in Scream 2, and with her watching it, I think it's just more I liked her in Buffy and I liked her in other things. So I attached that to the character, so I care more about her dying really than a lot of these other people, even though she wasn't that great of a person in the movie.
Yeah,
so I think you bring a lot of what you think of the general actors to that. And let that fill in the holes in their characters. This
film relied on the casting for sure, more so than the character writing. Absolutely.
Yeah. So Sarah Michelle Gellar got to get. She was able to be killed in Scream 2. I Know What You Did Last Summer. And was she in? She was in The Grudge and didn't die in it.
What about The Grudge 2? Was she in Grudge 2 or not?
I don't remember.
I only saw the first one.
Yeah, I only saw the first one. But, the remake, not the original one.
Yeah.
But then Freddie Prinze Jr. is just kind of like, I'm really handsome and kind of just a nothing character because he's just kind of the nice-ish guy, but then he also goes along with it, but then they kind of play it up in the back half of the movie like maybe he's the killer. And it's like, well, if he's the killer, that's just like terribly telegraphed, and it's really just kind of like people towards the end of the movie act unrealistically because he acts overly aggressive and weird.
Speaking of Sean Gunn, I think the Scooby-Doo movie is a better whodunit than this with Freddie Prinze and Sarah Michelle Gellar.
I mean, and the main thing that the movie comes down to, so something else too to kind of give more context to it. So it's set in like North Carolina or South Carolina or whatever. For vacation recently, I went to Fripp Island, which is just like a small island by the ocean in South Carolina. And a lot of the towns around there did remind me of the area that this movie was trying to portray, like small fishing towns, stuff like that. So going through those areas to get to the beach did remind me of what I saw in this movie. Or this movie reminded me of what I saw there because I rewatched this after I went there. So I think it did a decent job of kind of evoking the feeling of like a small kind of rural fishing town where there's not a ton of industry there. And you kind of need to leave to kind of have opportunity. I did get that. So, and then too, it's not set in super huge mansions in LA. So it was a nice change of pace from having it be set places like that. Because some of the places they did drive around to weren't super nice and high end. Because a lot of these movies are set in houses that are unrealistically huge. Because like most houses, because my house has 4 bedrooms, but if there was a slasher killer hiding in my house, it would take all of 15 minutes for the entire thing to unfold because there's only so many places you can hide. So at least this movie doesn't take place fully in like a house. It takes places in other locations. And then like Scream 2 got around that by taking place at a college where it is a lot larger and there's a lot more stuff going on. But this movie, there's not really any scares to be had. I mean, I guess there's
I didn't even think about that. Yeah.
There's some attempts at maybe jump scares or just the fact that you see somebody in like a fisherman's rain slick with like a hook scares you, but there's a lot of characters that wear that in that area. So there's really no attempt at jump scares aside from like the very end scene. That I can remember. There's no real fake out jump scares of a cat doing something.
Yeah, it's just a little flaccid on the kind of thrills end. The mystery is not great. The thrills aren't great. The characters aren't great. Like it's just a very C-level late 90s slasher film.
Well, and two, like Scary Movie even made a joke about Jennifer Love Hewitt's breast, and I think that's a lot of what the movie was marketed on.
Yeah.
And that's not me sitting here and just being, whatever now. It's just saying I think looking back, that's a lot of what the marketing was.
I mean, honestly, that's what I remember from it as a, 13-year-old kid or whatever, 12 or 13-year-old kid. I remember being like, okay, Jennifer Love Hewitt runs around in like a smaller top. But, the movie itself did not look that good.
Yeah, so I think that's just a lot of what the marketing was. Just to me, though, like I said, when you watch the movie, just the feeling of it is kind of like those 90s, teen, young adult shows.
Yeah, I mean, it's shot very standard as far as horror films of that era, too.
Yeah, stylistically, there's nothing that really jumps out at you that's
It's a very also basic style. Even Scream, I felt like had more flair to it. Yeah. And also, too, that has to do with the directing.
Well, but, you have Wes Craven versus somebody. It's a little bit more of just a lesser-known quantity.
Yeah, but, it doesn't really have much to... want you to rally behind. There's not like a lot of there are some horror films that are very weak in many aspects, but maybe there's like a great scene.
Yeah.
And somebody's like, I love that film, just that scene sold it, that was enough. Or I love this characters, or I love this moment, or I love just the design of the killer.
Yeah.
This film, I think, falters on a lot of those.
Because the killer is just wearing like a rain jacket with a hook and just silhouetted on the face. Yeah. You can't see who it is. So nothing super exciting there. You don't really have any kind of meta aspect or kind of playing with conventions of horror. It's mostly just like a young adult horror slasher film. That, like I said, if you had set this back in the 80s and had the same production values as My Bloody Valentine, it would have worked perfectly back then too.
And thinking about this as an 80s film, there probably would a lot more scenes where they were hanging out, making jokes and stuff,
Yeah.
It just seemed, those films seem a little looser in some regards, and that could have helped this film, actually.
Well, I think, too,
there wasn't enough of that character building.
And two, something else too, if they had gone with a lesser recognizable cast, because that did have a lot of people that were super well known or up and coming at that point.
Yeah.
If they had gone with a less recognizable cast, they probably would have had more TNA and gratuitous nudity and gore and stuff. But since they had pretty well-known cast, it was mostly all just, implication and pointing at things. And I'm not saying that makes it better or worse. I'm just saying that's probably what a difference is between making it in that era with that cast versus making it in 1983.
Real quick, what was a Freddie Prinze Jr.? Was it She's All That?
Yeah, She's All That. Yeah. Where
yes.
The girl has her glasses on. She's
Rachel
ugly.
Lee Cook.
She takes them off. Like, oh, she's beautiful. So...
And then was it Scary Movie that they riffed off that, or what was it? There was one of those movies where
there was not another teen movie.
That's what it was, because the guy comes down wearing just whipped cream on him.
Yeah.
I like not another teen movie at the time as well.
Yeah, I think until you mentioned so the movie, I know it didn't have any really stylistic flourishes.
No,
but I think if it had had a lot of stylistic flourishes of that era, it would have dated it even more.
Yeah. Well, it just felt I would almost want it to feel more grounded. Like it felt very much like a slick late 90s horror production, which, it doesn't really have any personality. It just felt like granted, you could have something like a H2O situation where some of it feels dated, but at least it had some dated flair.
Well,
you know what I mean? At least it has some sort of flair.
What I think would have been, or, Halloween 6 has even more, I think, of the time elements, but would have been amazing. And this could never really happen because I don't think you could ever convince anybody to do this type of thing, is if this movie was essentially the season series finale of a Party of Five 90210 type show.
Yeah.
So you build up all the history of the characters, so you really do
Yeah.
care. And then you have the mystery where it's built up and there's more into it. That will never happen because you'll never have a show shift gears that harshly,
Or you
with an
kill off the
established fan base,
characters.
because you would just make everyone get turned against you so harshly, as it's all expectations. If somebody thinks they're going to be watching like a violent show from the get-go, they're okay with that.
Yeah.
If somebody thinks they're watching like a drama and then it shifts pretty harsh, so like what's the show? 13 Reasons Why. So that one's gotten some flack for the stuff it had in it. And I even watched it because I watched the second season just out of curiosity again, because that's the reason I watched the first season. You know, the first season had more like those types of shows that like Party Five and stuff aimed at the, you know, high school crowd today with things like that. You know, then the second season had more ridiculous stuff and over the top, like gratuitous sexual assault and all these things. But like if a show like that just went into it, like if the next season of 13 Reasons Why was I Know What You Did Last Summer,
Yeah.
like that would be crazy.
I mean, you could always too just start out. You could make a show. Just start out the first episode. The accidental murder happens, and then the rest of it is they do have time to kind of hang out and stuff.
Yeah.
But you know, you've got a murder mystery going on, and some people are getting killed off slowly. Yeah, that's the trouble with slasher TV shows. It's like building up a cast and killing off people to where it just doesn't feel like the main characters are safe. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because if you make it
But
feel
having
like
too many, you know, it's
Because if you make it feel like all the main characters are safe
Yeah.
and there's no real danger, then it's only peripheral characters and you know who's going to die, so you don't get too attached. And I think that's what hurt shows like Scream Queens.
Yeah.
And, I mean, and they also just the direction they took Scream Queens.
nobody's cracked the code of making the standard phenomenal slasher TV show. You know what I mean? Like there's
only
moments, but there's nothing that is like, you know, the Scream of TV shows.
Yeah, 'cause there's
not including Scream. The TV
because there's
show.
nothing that really has taken the element of what makes those work and then worked it into a series. I know, like, was it Riverdale has had storylines about like a killer. So
Yeah.
I think there's shows that work in like elements of it, but I don't think there's ever been something where that was the point where they worked it in
and
super well.
maybe it just is not going to work. You have to
I think,
extrapolate.
I mean, maybe it's better if it works as, you know, because how many shows are there that start with a dead girl at the beginning and then that's working backwards and stuff like that. But yeah, I Know What You Did Last Summer, you know, if you want to watch like a binge of like the late slasher boom movies from the 90s and 2000s, like I guess when you're putting them on tiers and you're like there's a lot of people that think that Scream ruined horror for 10 years, which I say were you watching what was out at that time, like there wasn't a lot for it to have ruined. And the fact it was just a pop culture movie that was a general audience hit, if that's the reason you don't like it, I think it's kind of silly just for that to be the reason why. I guess a lot of people got upset that it made horror not be taken seriously because they're like, oh, here's the rule. People are doing this. They're going to die.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like, that's the charm of it.
Call it like it is.
Yeah, I'm just telling it like it is.
Yeah.
But, you know, so where Scream got those critiques, I Know What You Did Last Summer did not take itself too lightly. It did not really play up anything for jokes. I don't remember there being a single joke in the entire movie. And it was all just a very serious affair where you're supposed to really care when the characters die. Or maybe not. I mean, like the Ryan Felipe character, I don't really know how you're supposed to be super upset about his death.
Yeah.
Because he's just kind of a jerk the entire time. And I always confuse the scenes from Scary Movie with this movie because there's a scene where he's in the locker room and there's a picture of his car that's in his locker and then he freaks out. And on Scary Movie, it was a picture of a dude's penis. And then I always thought, for whatever reason, that the picture was of him having a small penis and he was really upset.
That's the beauty of Scary Movie is because they make it work well enough to where you really do. It really does intertwine on a lot of those
So you
films.
forget what all happened and what. And like Scary Movie to me probably is more I don't know. It has a lot of dated references because of the time it came out. And it was also referencing other teen movies and pop culture things. But, you know, I Know What You Did Last Summer. It's a very straightforward movie. I mean, aside from like the like cell phones existing as prevalently as they do now and social media, the movie really could have been set today because if somebody's just doing it in person, it would play it almost the exact same.
Yeah,
And social media wouldn't have had
pretty much
of
any era.
And then if they weren't using cell phones to relay information, a lot of it would have worked out the exact same. I guess some of the characters could have tried to call each other, be like, "Hey, where are you at?" instead of going looking and dying. But it's one of those movies, like we said, there's not a lot of stylistic flourishes that are super memorable shots. The killer's design isn't very memorable. None of the kills are that memorable. There's no huge set pieces that are amazing. But it just kind of comes down to if you buy into that 90s charm and the nostalgia of what it was and have affinity for the era. Because a lot of people defend the movie and say, "Oh, I really like it now," because a lot of people don't like it, and it doesn't have great reviews most places. Like a lot of the aggravator sites.
Yeah, if somebody loves it, more power to you. I don't,
it's no worse than a lot of the 80s era slashers that people love to this day.
There's nothing offensively bad about it or offensively boring. It's just not, for me, not exciting.
It doesn't have a lot of, so it's not the over-the-top campiness of Sleepaway Camp. It's not the like over-the-top gore or very memorable gore moment of The Burning. Mm-hmm. It's just kind of a movie that would fit in the same mold as those. Without any, it was more of just, because it's described as horror, but honestly, it's more of just like a suspense movie, or a thriller.
Yeah, murder mystery kind of.
And if you just,
they're the murderers.
Yeah, and then because really nobody died, and then I think in the sequel that it's the dad and the son or something. So they really didn't kill anybody the entire series aside from getting themselves killed, or at least the minor characters. Yeah. So, it's one of those movies that is not something I'm going to sit here and say, like, you have to watch it. And it actually has stuff that takes place during 4th of July. We just kind of missed the boat on doing that because of timing. But it's still just like a summer movie that you can watch kind of anytime when it's in the summer, July, August, whatever. So, it's one of those movies, too, like when we've been working on short films or thinking of things and looking for inspiration. I've never once thought about watching that movie to get anything from.
No.
Because like the one short film after the slasher was kind of Scream 4, really. Like if that movie played a little bit differently. Not saying quality-wise the same, just saying like if the Scream 4 had ended differently and then this was like the day after that movie ended, that's what the idea was. But, this movie, I Know What You Did Last Summer, the title is really cool, which obviously comes from a book.
The title and concept of...
Or a novel. So the idea, I think, could be redone... And you could just don't hang on to any of those characters or anything like that, because none of those are very memorable anyway. Because like right now, we're just referring to all the characters as their names, not their character names.
I think they got rid of the body too fast. I would have liked to have seen some body hijinks where they're hiding the body and stuff. Like I don't know if you've seen the movie Very Bad Things, set in Vegas, where they accidentally like.
Yeah, I think so.
Kill a prostitute, and then they're worried about cleaning up the blood and all that. Like, I think, but it's a fine movie. It's
so like they could have had like if they wanted to make the movie have a humorous scene, so the guy's not really dead, and then while the guys are arguing, the girls are moving the body, and since they are like moving and holding them and getting all up on them, then you see like you start to get like an erection or something. Like you could if you don't take that seriously. Because like that's what Scary Movie did, and that's why it's hard for me to kind of unravel Scary Movie from I Know What You Did Last Summer because there's so many elements in there.
There's an old movie called Arsenic and Old Lace as well. I know it makes me sound like a little kid when I'm like, there's an old movie, but it's an older movie. It's black and white. But yeah, that also somebody is hiding a body inside of a chest. Well, then and it's like a great scene with that and like worrying about somebody coming in and find them and stuff.
As well as the other movie Jawbreaker that was about. So there's a lot of movies about Weekend at Bernie's. There's movies about people trying to deal with dead bodies. It's just like you said. I think that like having more of that build up in the beginning, or just taking a little bit longer to get to the accident, so you have a little bit more of character basis. Or draw out the suspense of the accident. You know what I mean? Like just because if there's more will they won't they about how they're going to handle it. Or, get a better sense of beyond just like, here's the blonde and the brunette, and here's the hothead guy with curly hair, and here's the handsome guy with dark hair.
And I want to see the aftermath of them like in shell shock the next day. Like, oh my God. And just the dread. And I don't know, just...
Because it kind of skips the entire year.
Yeah, it just jumps.
And then, like I said, the killer just kind of indiscriminately kills these unrelated people.
Yeah.
So then you don't even... If the killer is literally just going after people that left him for dead, then it's like, well, I don't, agree, but I understand. They could have just went to the police, but whatever. It's a more understandable point of view, but if they're just killing anybody for any reason, then it's like, well, I don't really care about who the killer is because they're obviously a crazy person. But I mean, And then too, a lot of the characters that died, like the Jake Glecki character that weren't the main characters, there was no build up, so there was really no sadness over their passing. It's just like, oh, they didn't have anything to do with it. Why'd they kill them?
Yeah.
Or Sarah Michelle Gellar's character, her sister, gets killed for no reason. She's just there. So it's just like the killer doesn't even really establish any like rules as to what they're doing. Because, you know...
We just need some bodies for the screen, for the audience.
So I guess we can kind of give our scores and wrap it up. So if you were to give this movie a score out of 10, recognizing scores are meaningless because I think we gave Face Off, or Derek gave Face Off a 10. So I mean, Face Off was, I think I gave it a higher score too, like 8, just because it's so ridiculously fun.
Yeah, but a 10.
Yeah, I mean, once again,
because it's not. I think the film could have been better. Even you know, that's the thing. It's very entertaining. Joe Bob is also in that. I don't know if you guys spotted him.
Yeah, because we mentioned that he was in there.
Yeah, 10. Wow. But yeah, I would rate it pretty high as well.
You know, it's tongue in cheek though, not saying this is better than Get Out.
Yeah, but I just think
No Country for Old Men or something.
Went for like, you know what I mean. It just, I don't know. There was some missed opportunities with it, and I was wanting more out of some certain scenes. But anyway, I'd probably give this like a 5. Yeah, I don't know. It's like fine.
Yeah, I mean, I think I would fall because I think it's when you have 4 and a 6.
Competently made.
It's a 4 to 6 depending on if you have nostalgia for it in that era.
Yeah.
Then it's more of a 6 because then you can, you like seeing those characters on screen or those actors in that era.
I mean, yeah, that's why I give it a 5 because I was a teen during that era. And
like if you weren't really attached to any of that and you watch it now, it's a 4, maybe lower, just because it's a very standard slasher. There's nothing really stands out about it. And its financial success is its most defining characteristic over a lot of those movies that came after. It doesn't have any of the crazy, memorable things. Like I mentioned the movie Cherry Falls. It doesn't have anything like that. And, I mean, it has better-known stars than some of those other ones. But there was just nothing...
No pun intended. There was no big hook in the film. But, except for the concept of, hey, they murdered somebody. Like, that was it. Yeah. And that's as far as it went, basically.
Yeah, so I think I'd probably get like a 5 too. Mm-hmm. Just middle of the road. It's not it's competently made. It's got decent acting from the people in it.
Fine acting.
It's just the movie itself could maybe use a few more passes on the script or just try to build up something more. But maybe for the time it was successful, made a lot of money. So maybe
people needed some more slashers after being all jacked up on Scream.
Yeah, because Scream was like, let's deconstruct it, and I know what you did last summer is like, well, here's just what it is. Because The Cabin in the Woods is a deconstruction, remake. And then the Evil Dead remake is more of a straightforward version of that, and people like Evil Dead remake made more money. So I think it's just you have deconstruction, you have just the straightforward, and that was the straightforward. At this point, the types of movies that are getting made that are this type of slasher are mostly the independent scene and not big movies.
Yeah.
I mean, we'll see if Halloween moves the needle and gets more slashers put in the theaters, but I think that would even still be a different type of slasher than what this was. But I think if this movie was to get remade, that makes total sense. And you could do something a little bit more relevant with the concept today.
Because this is definitely heavy on the mystery, you know, and you could really work that up, I think, and right around that.
Yep. But that'll wrap up our discussion of I Know What You Did Last Summer. And if you're listening via iTunes, you can do us a huge favor, leave a review there. That helps other people find the podcast and helps us move up the podcast charts. If you're listening on YouTube, you can leave comments because we always enjoy seeing comments there and seeing feedback.
We got a good number of subscribers pop up this month.
Yeah, because one of our older videos from years ago is a list that Corey did of the top 5 movies that scared him has gotten traction because I guess a YouTube algorithm changed because it's gotten popular because it just shows up in their browse features or something. So thank you for algorithmically bumping our videos up YouTube. You should do it for all of them. But yeah, and then you can find all the work we're doing at houseofvideostore.com. Find links there to all of our social media accounts, to Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and all of that, and find links to everything we're doing. And if you want to find us specifically in the internet, I recommend following our Instagram, HBTVS_official, because we post pictures and stories and stuff there about what we're going to be doing. And if you want to find us specifically in the internet, you can find me on Twitter at @TheWilliamCaps.
And I'm at James Gunn.
No, don't do that.
At Blevin Sean. Yeah, follow our Twitter account, HBTVS_official Twitter account as well, too. Because sometimes there's like little news things or something we post on there that we don't post on Instagram. It's just whatever. We're pretty lax and laid back about this whole site and everything. So it's just on a whim. We might post it on Twitter, but not post it on Facebook or vice versa. So we don't always cross-post against everything.
Yeah, so give those a follow, but that'll bring this episode of the House of Video Store podcast to a close. Thanks for listening.